Hello, welcome to the Empowered Marriage Podcast. My name is Helen Harrison, and you are listening to podcast 70, which is extremely exciting. So this podcast is about taking time out to stop a toxic marriage. It's a topic which I feel is really important. By the time couples are coming to see me, there can be a fair bit of breakdown in the relationship. And if couples had learnt some crucial skills, and this one being a really, really important one, that can stop you from getting to where you go to, which is the breakdown of communication. So being able to take time out when conflict is occurring is vital. So, and that's what I'm going to talk about today. And there are a specific 5 steps of being able to take time out elegantly. So, think of a time when you were having a disagreement with your partner and one of you may have been triggered. Now, I've talked about this a lot on various podcasts about getting triggered. When we get triggered, we go into either fight, where we can become quite aggressive with how we speak. We go into the flight, where I'm out of here. So out of here could be mentally in your mind, or you remove yourself from the situation. And the last is freeze, where you actually shut down. And so when I get triggered, I go into the freeze. And for quite a fair part of my marriage, I'm out of a 30-year marriage, I could get triggered very, very easily because I was very much living from the wounded self. And when we live from the wounded self, we can get triggered very easily. And for me, it's the automatic response where I went to as a child growing up, is I just shut down. I'd numb down. And so still to this day, if I get triggered, I go into freeze. And so when we get triggered, it's a child state. So the adult in you, the adult in you that knows how to be assertive, knows how to speak up, can listen, can receive feedback, the adult in you disappears. You can't actually function. And again, it plays out differently for all of us. I have people who get triggered in my room, particularly doing couples work, but I am able to guide them and help them to be able to come out of that triggering. Yeah, if you're on your own and you get triggered, I know for me, I'd call it my comfy couch, and I could spend 2 weeks in that comfy couch. It's a child state, and it's coming from a place where I did not know how to get myself out of it. So I think it is absolutely crucial that in a relationship, in an empowered marriage, that you know how to take time out. I hear people in my room after the event. I hear people who I work with online who talk about after the event. If only I had taken time out, it wouldn't have escalated. I wouldn't have jumped in my car like I always do. I want to stop doing that. You may be listening to this and you may be on the receiving end of a partner who always says, I'm going to leave, and they continue to leave. It's a bit like the kid who kept calling wolf, and they keep leaving and leaving. That causes so much stress and pain and heartache in a relationship. And so that's your job. If you do any of the fight or flight or freeze, you need to clean that up. You need to get support around that. Find a therapist, find a coach, find someone who does kinesiology, somebody who does some sort of therapy that can help you work with your trauma to move that fight and flight. Because if you don't, you are going to be triggered. But in the meantime, well, that's not what I'm talking about today. What I'm talking about today is there are 5 steps in taking time out, which is vital. So the first one is, number 1, is being able to recognize that I need to take time out. And so because you can feel it in the body, you can feel like your heart's starting to work a bit faster. You might talk more or talk less. Your temperature changes. There's a lot going on in the body. And for a lot of us, including me, I used to live in the head up. I'm so much more embodied in the body now, but it's noticing what's going on in the body, feeling it. You might feel like your face is getting really red. And so what happens is recognizing the need for time out. You also may begin to notice that your partner is starting to, perhaps they've been triggered and they've gone into the fight. So it's for you to take time out. It's not for you to dive in and say, oh, you're in the fight, you've been triggered, I've triggered you. No, that doesn't work. Take time out. That's number one. My number two would be is when you've recognized about taking time out, you request the time out. You call for it. So, for example, and bring it back to yourself, look, I am too angry at the moment. I am not able to talk about it. I'm just going to go for a walk. All right, so you bring it back to all I statements. You're not throwing it out onto your partner and telling them, or, attacking them or criticizing them. You're actually bringing it back to yourself and you're going, I need time out, and you request or have a little bit of an idea. Look, I'll come back to you in half an hour, or I'll speak to you in an hour, or look, I'll get back to you when I can talk about it again. Leaving it open-ended is not a good thing, especially if you come from a place of a rejection wound and you've got someone who takes time out, but they haven't actually said how much time they're taking out. So this is why I'm telling you about the steps, because it's extremely important that there is really good communication around time out. Because if you just take time out and it's open-ended and you never come back to actually redress it, well, that's not helpful. So your second is request the time out. Your third is about being able to breathe and calm yourself down. I find it really, really helpful. Take my shoes off, go and stand on the earth, feel grounded. For other people, it can be going for a jog, going for a run, getting a pool noodle. It can be boxing on the boxing bag. It could be going to the gym. It's endless what you can do to start to intentionally reduce the emotional intensity to bring yourself down. That's number 3. 4, remember what is important. So what do I mean by that? Do you want to be happy? Do you want to be right? What just went on? It's reflecting. It's, oh, wow, what was my part in this? Man, I sort of overreacted. Or it could be, I'm really tired, I haven't had much great sleep, or I'm under a lot of stress, or I haven't eaten, or I've been drinking, or it's being able to take ownership. It's taking time out to actually just stop and reflect and remember what is important. So with that, it's bringing it back to your own I statements and what's gone on for you, but also to perhaps see it from your partner's point of view. Okay, because when we're in the fight and flight, and if we don't take time out and then bring ourselves back down to calm, it's like you actually don't even want to know what's going on for your partner because you're so agitated or aggravated or annoyed. So try and see it from your partner's point of view. Slowing it right down. Do I want to be happy or do I want to be right? And the 5th way of taking time out would be to resume the conversation. So yes, one of you got triggered. One of you needed to take time out, or both of you, but you have to resume the conversation. I see that a lot with clients in my room who say we never actually come back to what got us annoyed. We take time out and we do that quite well, but we actually don't resume the conversation because one or both of us is a little bit nervous of it getting escalated again. resume the conversation, but come in from a place of assertiveness and active listening. And so having turns to be in that role. It is so important to come back to that topic. If it's a really large one, do you put it into bite-sized pieces and just do it in sections? So as a couple, because this doesn't go away, you feel that energy in your body. It is so important that you don't go into any resentment, because if you don't move that resistance and clear it out, it does begin to build as resentment and rejection, and then you can repress, which is not healthy. All right, but I'm not opening that up today. I am just talking about how to take time out so you don't go into creating a toxic marriage. So I'm going to ask you to ask some questions in your relationship. Okay, as a couple, what could be really helpful is, what do you think the advantages are of actually taking time out? Have a discussion about that. For both of you, what are the advantages of taking time out? Secondly, I want you to discuss, well, what's your worry about taking time out? Is there a worry, or is there mainly advantages? It will be different for all of you. Also, I think what could be helpful is that you take turns in discussing how you are going to do the time out. I've heard of couples who do it so elegantly, and then I've heard of others who do it very clumsily. They have got fantastic intentions. However, when one of them have been triggered, it all goes down the drain, and we just revert back to our old ways. That's why it can be extremely helpful to work with someone and become accountable for that. So if you're listening to this and, oh, it's all well and good, Helen, I've got a partner who won't take time out and is a bit like a bulldozer and comes at me, and I just struggle with that. What am I meant to do with that then? That's a really good question. So it's being able to maybe walk and talk, go for a walk, and bring some lightness. You're not looking at each other, you're just going for a walk, you're doing your, perhaps, every few days you do a walk together. Bring it up. Hey, you know what? I'd love to give this a bit of a whirl. I would like us that, we've been under a bit of stress at the moment. I'd like to be able to take a bit of time out, and I want to call it, because sometimes I get really aggravated, and when I get aggravated, I then criticize you and I get angry with you, and I want to stop doing that. So I want to be able to take some time out. So as a couple, is that okay? So just having some conversations around it before it gets too heated, because there are so many advantages. I've been working with couples and individuals a long time, and people can come in where they are not in a good way, and their marriage is quite toxic, and they haven't just woken up for it to have got to that. They haven't just got to that place where perhaps they're flatmates. Perhaps there is no passion, there is no desire, there is no connection. It hasn't just happened. This has been a very gradual decline in the quality of conversations and the quality of time that you are spending together. And this is why I have the Empowered Marriage podcast, to just bring your attention to creating time, making your relationship a priority. I believe there are two really big areas where the marriage becomes quite toxic. When I say areas, what I mean is time periods. It's those, I can hear my dog. It's those couples who have got babies, and they've got through the babyhood stage and they're perhaps now in toddler stage and the relationship is a bit in tatters. Being able to practice time out in this period to bring the relationship back and to bring some connection back could be hugely helpful. The other area that I see is couples with teenagers who are at a stage of beginning to launch their children. They're starting to let them go, and they're starting to go into we are going to start having a lot more time as a couple without the children. And also, so as that goes on, just living in the house on their own without the children and then into retirement. So there's two really big areas that I see coming in my room is those two age groups. Those with young children out of the baby stage and those who are going into the children leaving home. Because there's a whole period in the middle where for a lot of couples they just get on with it. They just get on with raising the children, taking them to sports, taking them to school, doing all the things that are needed to keep a family going. And I get it because I've done that. I really do get it. But it's being able to have a few tools in your tool bag, whether you're at the baby stage or you're the other stage or something in between. I'd really encourage you to learn how to take time out and to do it effectively. So I do hope this has been helpful. I've really just pulled something very simple out and it's in a tool bag and it's how to take time out elegantly. So 1, recognize the need for time out. 2, request the time out. 3, breathe and calm down. 4, remember what is important. And 5, resume the conversation, but do it very assertively. Active listen. Hear what your partner's got to say. Understand what your partner's got to say. Listening is a really beneficial and really helpful tool in a marriage and in an empowered marriage because it is going to bring in more closeness and connection. So I really hope this has been helpful. My name is Helen Harrison. You can find me on my website or one of them because I'm actually rebranding, which is awfully exciting, into just Helen Harrison, not my Power of Change. But for now, have a look on powerofchange.com.au. All the info about what I offer: counselling, coaching, psychotherapy, working with couples and working with individuals, but also the blogs, the podcast. If this has been helpful, I'd love you to perhaps recommend this podcast. When we're not doing too well, sometimes just seeking out different things of interest, particularly if you're in a marriage and you aren't connected, you're not feeling a closeness, you're not feeling a passion. Listening to podcasts, so for me, for example, and many others, there's a wealth of stuff out there, can support you enormously. You're not going to feel so alone. You're not going to feel so isolated. And then with that, you will begin to get some steps of what you can do moving forward that can take you in the momentum and the direction that you would like to go in. So on that note, I really hope you've got something from this. And if you haven't, listen to the next one. You may get something from that one. So on that note, enjoy living in your empowered life, in your empowered marriage. And I'll see you next time.